All right, my beautiful people, welcome back. So, today I want to talk about the ego and balancing it. But first things first, let's get some important business handled. Okay, yes, I shaved the beard. Used to go with the baby face, and I started growing the beard out, and I'm like, wow, I look way too young with the baby face. Now, every time I shave, it's like, oh, I see why they call it a baby face because when you have hair on the face, you look like a grown man. When you don't, you look like a little child. And now I look at myself and I feel like I'm in high school. And it doesn't help that I have pimples all of a sudden, which I never have anymore. And I think it happened because I had the beard. So we're talking about balancing the ego today, and I'm really trying to figure out how to balance the facial hair and the face care because apparently if I want to look like a grown man, I have to deal with pimples. So it's a whole thing. I'm working on it, and obviously I'll keep you guys updated. It's very important to everyone I know. So today I want to talk about balancing the ego. So the ego is something I really like talking about now and thinking about because I think it's really interesting and it's something that I don't think a lot of people recognize, which is why I want to continue to write and make videos about mindset related things and our thoughts and where they come from because I think it's important for people to know so they can better balance themselves out and their reactions to things and their emotions. So I'm going to include some links down below for stuff I've written in the past about the ego. I don't think I've made videos about it yet, but I have written some stuff. So I'm going to put that in the description. So if you want to go further in depth with this, we can do that. So the ego is basically what drives our thoughts. It's kind of like our subconscious. And basically, anytime you feel yourself thinking about the past or worrying about the future or thinking about, oh, this person doesn't like me, or oh, this girl I'm talking to, she hasn't texted me in like 2 hours, she's probably hanging out with another guy, like that, that is where all those thoughts come from, is from the ego, because the ego is defensive and it wants to basically protect itself. It wants to protect itself and it wants to protect you, and so that's why there's a lot of fear involved. I think the ego is especially prevalent in future. I think that's where people really are dragged down mentally, is thinking about the future and worrying about the future, despite the fact that a lot of times we create these thoughts in our mind that, or these situations that just never happen. I mean, seriously, think about the things you worry about or have worried about in the past, and they just never come to fruition. And this is just the ego basically being defensive and preparing you for something that might happen. But in reality, if if you kind of quiet your ego, and which is not easy to do, and it's it's not something I could explain in one video. I mean, I put some stuff in my book kind of about it, and I'm gonna put the book in the description as well. But if you've watched the channel and not read the book yet, come on. I mean, I'm making videos about it too. Like, it's so easy, but I haven't made the video about that chapter yet. So I'll give you a break. But it's a tough challenge, and it's something I still worry about despite really working on it for, I don't know, 8 months now. It's not something easy to do, and I don't think it's something that we can ever do. And that's why, and I don't think we ever should completely kill our ego, and that's kind of what I want to talk about. But it's just important to understand the ego's role and how it plays a part in our daily lives. So what do I mean by balancing the ego? So first, let's talk about the different types of ego you could have. You could have a fragile ego, which basically means you're kind of weak-minded, you're very scared and very fear-driven, very worried about other people's opinions of you and what other people are doing, and you're basically constantly in a state of sadness and depression, and you're just very down all the time because you're worrying so much about all these external factors that you have little to no control over. and it's just such a burden on your mind and yourself. And again, that's a lot of these things that I've been producing content wise the past, really since back in August, September, is driven because I would say last year I had a fragile ego. I was very impacted by some external events. I let it get to me, and it really brought me down for a good amount of last year. And it really wasn't the coronavirus. And again, with the book, if you want to read the book or watch the videos I've made, that explains it. But those external events really brought me down, and I would say I had a fragile ego because I was so negatively impacted by it. Then on the flip side, you have the strong ego, which I would say is probably equally as bad, but maybe it's probably not as bad. So a strong ego, I'm sure people are more familiar with this because ego is more associated with people that are full of themselves and people that think that they're better than everyone else. And that definitely is a strong ego where you think you were right and everyone else is wrong, and you don't care about other people's opinions, which is good, but you don't care about their opinions because you think they're dumb and stupid. And that's just not how reality works. I mean, we have differing opinions from people because we have different backgrounds, we have different experiences, we have different perspectives, and these are all good things. And I think to some degree there are right and wrongs in certain situations, but a lot of times it just comes from that perspective. And if you have a strong ego, you can't accept that other people have different or perspectives that might be right. You're not really willing to hear that, and you're not really willing to try to understand that and empathize with that. So, a strong egoed person, the reason I think it's probably better than a fragile ego, because I don't know if a fragile ego has any upside to it, because you you're going to have relationships with people, but you're going to be so worried about what they think of you and maybe what they're doing, and just creating scenarios that, oh, they looked at me weird today, so like they might not like me. I don't think you can maintain healthy relationships if you have a fragile ego, because really you don't have a good relationship with yourself. And if you don't have a good relationship with yourself, you're not going to have good relationships with other people, whether it be romantic or just friendships or family. It's just really tough to have a good relationship with anyone if you don't like yourself, or if you're just so constantly worried about these things that it's just constantly impacting you. So I don't think there's any upside to a fragile ego. A strong ego, you're going to have career success. You're going to be ambitious because you think you're so good and you're going to put in the work to prove that. And so you're going to have success there. But you're not going to have success with relationships as much because, again, you're going to isolate yourself more because you think everyone around you is stupid. Anytime they disagree with you, you think they're stupid, you think they're wrong, and you may choose to isolate yourself and cut them out of your life, or they may choose to cut you out because you are just so strong-egoed and strong-willed that you just can't budge and there's no really compromise. So it just depends what you want. Like you're not going to feel fulfilled in the work you do. You're going to have career success, and that's going to carry you a little bit. You know, you're going to feel good for a while because you've proven yourself. But then I think you get to a fork in the road where you're like, wow, like I think I would trade all this in for good relationships. And that may be when you're 30, it may be when you're 50, maybe when you're 80. That's why I think it's good for everyone to take inventory of their ego and their self and kind of understand how they're handling things. And that's where the balance comes in. So I'm becoming more spiritual, so I tend to, and I've been getting into Stoicism, and I've been writing about Stoicism, which again, I can put in the description, not to just throw all my writing at you, but I'll give you the option to read it. So Stoicism is essentially the practice of letting the universe kind of work itself out and work your life out. And you know, the universe could be God. It just depends on how you look at it, whether you're religious or not. I mean, they're basically the same thing. Like if you believe in a God, letting God work things out for you. If you don't believe in God, then letting the universe work out for you and all that. So Stoicism is kind of the practice of that, of just letting go of all your fears and all your worries and letting things work out as they will, and they will work out if you don't push too hard. But again, completely different video that I can make in the future. Um, and ambition is something that's talked about in Stoicism in an interesting way, because in Stoicism, it's not that ambition is frowned upon, it's just a strong willed Stoic doesn't have a ton of ambition because there's just no desires, because they understand that the universe is going to work out for them. And there's a balance to that too, because I think even though, I mean, again, this could go in a lot of different directions, but if you think things are kind of already set up for you and you think there's a certain life path laid out for you already by the universe or God or whatever, then why would you try that hard towards something if you're already going to get that? And I think to some degree that can work out, but I also think that you have to work to do things. That's just how it goes. I don't think you can just sit around and wait for things because the universe is going to give it to you, because if you don't put energy towards those things, then you're not going to get it, or you're not going to get it as quickly, at least. And so ambition is an interesting discussion, and it's something I've been trying to figure out with myself. But I think, and one thing that they talk about in Stoicism, Marcus Aurelius talks about in his book Meditations, which was not a book, it was more of a journal that they took after he died and made it a book, which I think is funny still. That if he came back today and found out his personal journal was published, I don't think he would be that happy about it. But it's very useful, and if you're interested in this kind of thing, I think it's something you should read. But he talks about how you can be ambitious, but just be ambitious towards what you care about and what you feel your purpose is. And not everyone understands what their purpose is, and that's fine. I've been lucky that I figured out at a pretty young age I wanted to be a writer. So that's what I work towards, and I'm happy. I'm happy to be ambitious in that path because I think that's what I was meant to do. And again, not everyone is able to figure out as easily as me, but I mean, everyone knows what they like to do, and just do the things you like. And sometimes it may not be productive in a business sense, but just try things and you'll figure it out over time. Is the short answer to that question. But just so be ambitious towards what you think your path is and your purpose. And so where does the balanced ego come in that? So I don't want to say to have a balance between a strong and a fragile ego. I think what I'm looking for is the tamed ego. So the foundation is that you love yourself, that you don't care what other people think, because and it's not because you think they're wrong or stupid, it's just that you can't control what other people think of you, and you could do all the best things in the world and they still might not like you. And there was another Stoic, it may have been Socrates or one of those guys. I don't even know if Socrates was a Stoic, but one of those old Stoics said that you could be a peach and there's going to be someone that doesn't like a peach. Like you could be what you would think everyone's going to love. You could be a piece of candy. There's going to be a person that doesn't like candy. That's just how the world goes. You can be the best person in the world, and there's going to be someone that doesn't like you. So you have to let go of that and just not care what people think. And again, it's not because you don't appreciate their perspective. It's not because you don't have empathy for them. It's because you just understand that you can't control what people think about you no matter what you do. And you should be yourself no matter what. You should never stoop yourself to a lower level so someone likes you, because then another person will like you. So you just have to be yourself, not care what other people think. But yeah, at the same time, you have to love yourself. You have to have a good relationship with yourself, and you're gonna have good relationships with other people because of that. So that's a strong foundation to build off. Then comes in the other side of it, where you do have that ambition, you have that drive, and the difference between this part of the tamed ego and a strong ego is that you're doing this for yourself. You are ambitious because you want to have success in that. You want to do this for a living or for your life or for your career. It's not you're trying to do it for yourself. It's not something you are doing to prove yourself to other people. You're not trying to have all this business success to prove this guy wrong or that girl wrong for dumping you. You're doing it for yourself. So that's the what I'm talking about with the balanced ego is have that ambition in a career, but don't let it impact your relationships. And on the flip side, have good relationships, but don't let it drag you down to a point where you are not focusing on your path. There has to be a balance to it. You have to have that relationship with yourself, which really is the most important because, again, if you don't have a good relationship with yourself, you're not going to have a good relationship with other people. So having a good relationship is selfish and selfless because it's selfish because you're doing it for yourself, but it's selfless because if you don't have a good relationship with yourself, it's going to negatively impact those other people. So being true to yourself helps you and everyone else around you because you're being good for yourself is being good for everyone basically. So that's where it's important. If you are too ambitious, it could drag you down in relationships. But if you are focusing on relationships too much, then you're going to get off your path and that's going to negatively impact those relationships down the line. So that's essentially what I'm talking about, the balanced ego. If you want more on this, I can go a little bit deeper in depth. This is kind of just a little introduction to the topic. Again, understanding the ego and what it does is important. So if this video went over your head, that may be why, and I will put more information down below. Also, books, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, or Tolle, however you pronounce it. That book was a huge inspiration for me. Probably the best book I've ever read for my mental state. So that is a great place to look, and there's a ton about ego in there, a ton. And then again, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. I think that is a good way to figure out the balanced ego where you are focusing on yourself, you're focusing on your relationships, and you're focusing on your path all equally, and they're all kind of working together where they're all helping each other and not bringing anything down. So I've gone on a little bit long, so that's it. If you have any questions, please leave them below. I'll put my Twitter below as well. Thank you very much.